Morning, folks. Welcome to the show, the F5 Report, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, friends, and finance. I'm joined today by my good buddy, Steve Sweeney. He is the owner of NEMR Total HR. Did I get that right,
Yeah.
Steve? Awesome.
You got it, Jeff.
So, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit about how's life treating you right now?
That's an interesting question, right? Sure, everybody's dealing with the same challenges, but yeah, life is good, man. I can't complain. Business is still trucking along. Look, everybody, got their ups and downs, and we got some challenges with some of our clients. Tough economic times, especially where we're at, Jersey, New York, Philly area.
Yeah.
A little bit of a hot spot for the country, but I can't complain. We're working. I have my entire team working remotely. We haven't had to make any changes. Everybody's healthy. Family's good. Family's healthy. So if we got that, then we're in good shape.
So you got everybody working. You kept everybody going. You switched to virtual, right? I mean, you took an office-based business and kind of let everybody work from home, but you haven't skipped a beat.
We did. So yeah, I have a staff of 30 in my office. We've never worked remotely before. We just, we always said, hey, we don't have that kind of culture, right, to work remotely.
Yeah.
Been doing it for 20 years. And then probably about a week before they mandated us to work from home, we said, you know what, we don't want to put any of our staff at risk. And we moved everybody remote, without skipping a beat. So it actually turned out to be, pretty good transition. And it'll be interesting to see if I can get my staff to actually come back to the office.
I think more than not are going to have that challenge, right? Keeping people trying to figure out, hey, we were productive from home. Why would you need me back in the office? It was making sense for a lot of people. I think they're seeing productivity go up because it's a more effective, more efficient, effective way to get people to do their job, right?
No, it's true. I think a lot of people thought, hey, I can't work from home. And then they were forced to work from home, and they saw that it's a viable option, which will be interesting to see, how businesses, re-enter the workforce or ramp back up when this thing, starts to subside.
Yeah. One of the reasons, multiple reasons I wanted to have you on the show, but one of those is because of what you do. I mean, you're an outsourcing firm for HR services for a lot of companies, and I don't know how many, but the fact is that you're kind of seeing the heartbeat and the pulse of a lot of different industries. I mean, you have companies in all different industries, right, that you guys represent?
Yeah, so we represent about 80 companies. We oversee about 3,000 employees in about a dozen different states. So primarily, our companies are located right here in the tri-state area.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the different industries. I have companies from, little small, shops to large, surgery centers and everything in between. So, all different industries, white, gray, blue collar. And, the interesting part is it's really impacted everybody, just the same. So, some businesses are working, and they have everybody working really hard. And other businesses are totally furloughed or completely laid off. But, the one thing I can say is that everybody's really optimistic, which seems to be a really neat thing. All the business owners that I deal with and talk to, they're all kind of like on pause, right? So they don't see it as, the end of times. They see it as like, hey, a little bit of a challenge. People that have been in business know that, those who weather the storm come out stronger on the other side. And I think that's the mentality that a lot of people are taking, which is great to see.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm talking to a lot of people. It seems like there's almost like a pent up energy, but it's like a positive energy. Like people are like ready to rip loose and let go and like get back to work and start, moving again. And it's in the last couple of days, I've seen the frustration level go up, like just in the conversations I've had. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing.
100%. And I think that, the more, you get, conflicting reports to come out and, different media sources reporting different things, it adds a level of frustration because people really, frankly, don't know what to believe, which is sad to say. But, I think people are, the weather's getting nicer. People have been cooped up for a while. They're homeschooling their kids, which is, which is a whole new challenge in itself. New Jersey just announced school's over for the year yesterday.
Yeah.
So people are about ready to let loose.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I was on the phone yesterday with a mutual friend, and he was like, he's not the kind of person that I would consider like a conspiracy theorist, right? And he's just going on and on. The CDC changed their numbers. This whole thing's ridiculous. I don't know when and it's like, you could sense it's the frustration of, we're all entrepreneurs. We want to go out there and we want to crush it and we want to win and we want to make money. And capitalism is what feeds this country in a lot of ways. And so, like, being restricted from being able to go out and do your thing, it just feels it's so tough.
It is, Joe. And the one thing I wanted to say, which I didn't get to say when we first started, was, I've always been, a big supporter of, first responders, and the military. I'm the first person, first generation of my family that didn't serve, in the military. And, I appreciate you and people like you served in the military because, you don't realize the freedoms that we have, living in the United States until some of them are taken away. I mean, we take so much stuff for granted, the ability to go places, move around, be those entrepreneurs and go out there and make money and support our family and have employees and support their families until it's taken away from you. And, in some senses, not to go down a rabbit hole, but in some sense, some people feel like that's been taken away from them. And it's difficult, and you could see why people are getting upset. So, I appreciate you and everybody, out there that served in the military that allowed us to have those freedoms. And, I mean, the good thing about it is we do live in the United States, and, we'll endure this and we'll get through it and we'll come out the other side and it'll be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. I think right now the healthcare workers, the ones that are really on the front lines, they're our new soldiers, right? Like, people always say
Absolutely.
that the soldiers are the heroes. That the truth is, like, if you're going into battle, this thing every day, and that's the epicenter of where it's all happening, right? In the ERs and in the ICUs. So, if you're going out there to do that, you're the hero right now.
And it's funny because, there's a lot of forgotten healthcare heroes too that, don't just work in the hospitals, but, these senior living facilities and long-term care facilities and, these less skilled healthcare workers. I mean, they're just going in there every day, not knowing what they're going into. And maybe they don't have the equipment they need and they're taking care of people's families. And it's a wild time. You got to appreciate these people.
A lot of stress, a lot of weird communication that has to happen. When someone has their parents in a senior care facility and they're not allowed in, and you see people outside the window, doing the birthday celebrations and stuff. It's crazy. I mean, it's unprecedented. Nothing never happened before. And question is, will it happen again? Right? What happens if this resurgence happens again in the fall or the winter? Where do we stand?
I mean, that's the scary part. So I think that, while we're very, very focused on the right now, let's get back to work. I think just like, in business, you need to have a plan for the future. So everybody needs to start thinking about, this isn't going to go away, right? We're just on pause at the moment. But we're going to re-enter the workforce and people are going to go about and do their thing. And, what's going to happen in the fall if this thing does come back in the winter? So you really need to start thinking about, your business and what your plan is. And, the businesses that are going to survive and be really strong are those businesses not only that can scale up quickly, but that can scale down quickly.
Yeah, you got to be able to pivot.
Exactly. So you need to start thinking about what your workforce looks like, what your physical space looks like, what your remote capabilities look like. I mean, my wife is a school administrator and they're already talking about, split sessions in the fall. Having kids, go to school a couple days a week and work from home a couple days a week. Well, how's that going to work?
Man, I can go down such a deep rabbit hole with that. Like, I think that this homeschooling kind of epidemic that we're dealing with, right, with all these kids back in the house and parents trying to figure out, but I think it's also going to prove to a lot of folks that, like, hey, how's my kid getting done in 2 hours? They're trying to say it's a reduced workload. I don't know if that's really the truth or not. Like, I'm seeing my kids get through all their subjects. They're doing the assignment that's assigned to them.
Right.
Maybe I foresee this thing, again, this is a big rabbit hole we can go down, but I foresee this thing shifting education completely. I can see, virtual homeschooling, even from our teachers and our administrators existing, happening in the future. Like, I think this really plays a part in us scratching our heads saying, is this infrastructure really necessary? We're spending millions and millions of dollars a year on the structures and the schools and everything that goes into it. Can our kids work remotely and learn? I think we're answering some questions right now.
Joe, I think you hit a nail right on the head, because people are already clamoring about their property taxes. And, if you're paying $20,000 a year on property taxes, and 68% of that is going towards your school district. I mean, look, I'm a big proponent of public education and the system itself. But that being said, this is definitely going to raise some questions, and you better bet people are going to go way deeper down that rabbit hole, because there's people out there that you could trigger real quickly, with that conversation.
100%. And listen, I'm not taking anything away from our staff and our administrator. I mean, our teachers have been absolutely amazing via Skype and Zoom and all that type of thing. But I think something's got to give at some level. Across that side, I think it's an interesting industry for sure. College. I just think about colleges and all this. Like, is it necessary to congregate in order to teach? And I think we're proving that answer right now.
Yeah, college is a whole nother rabbit hole, but I mean, look, my wife, like I said, she's an administrator. I mean, she's working, harder at home probably than she does at the office. But that being said, I mean, I think it is going to definitely shift, how we educate and definitely, raise more questions and answers, during this period. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. So I'm going to shift the topic a little bit. I know that you, in your firm, have been helping people with all of these recovery efforts, right? With the PPP and the other SBA loans and things that are available. What have you seen on that front? Have people been getting their loans? Have you been having a hard time finding them? Is there a resource that makes it better for small businesses to go after?
So it's interesting, so the whole process, I mean, the PPP loan process and the CARES Act, I mean, it was kind of unbelievable how the government did it. I mean, they put almost $1 trillion in cash on the street, in a month's time. And, it was like the Wild West of banking. I mean, they were just infusing banks with cash, and, banks were, giving people, 6 and 7 figure, loans on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. That were guaranteed by the government. So, I understand the premise of why they had to do it as quickly as they did, but it definitely does not come without challenges. I mean, the premise of these PPP loans is that, they turn into grants if you use them for, the intended purpose, which is payroll and some other things. But the forgiveness provisions aren't even, concrete yet. So, you got a lot of companies that are 2, 3, 4 weeks into spending that money, into that running 8-week period, and they don't even know what the forgiveness provisions are. So, I mean, the forgiveness provisions were outlined, somewhat, when they drafted the act, but, Treasury's been saying they're going to put out an FAQ, and answer some questions, and they really have been, remiss in being as concrete as possible. So, my advice to those companies is, do what the intended purpose was with the money, if you want to have maximum forgiveness. And, I don't think there's going to be any backlash as long as your intention was pure. So, don't take the money and, jog down to Atlantic City. Well, you can anyway, but don't take the money. Don't take the money.
No online poker, right?
Yeah, don't take the money and put a pool in your backyard.
Yeah.
And expect it to be forgiven. But
along those lines, are there some concrete guidelines? I mean, I've heard different things, different folks. I mean, I heard keep your business, your company employed for a certain amount of time, and 75% of them are left after the fact. It'll be free. Like, are there concrete guidelines to that?
Yeah. So the real high level framework is spend 75% of the money, on payroll related costs, and no more than 25% on, rent, utilities, or if you own the building, mortgage interest. You can't spend it on principal. If you do that, and you don't have if you don't have greater than a 25% swing in wages or, employees, you should be okay. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce put out a really good 4-page piece. I'd be happy to send it to you, Joe, and you can send it out to, all the people that that has a formula that's really simple to look at. And I think if you look at that and you use that formula and you stick with that, then you'll be pretty good.
So there's a good chance that these loans are going to be forgiven. This is going to turn, like you said, it's going to turn into a grant versus, being paid back or being a loan that's repaid.
Yeah, I think if the business is using it for that purpose, that they will. I mean, I do hear from a lot of people out there that are saying, "Hey, look, I'm not going to use the money, to pay my people. I'm going to hold on to it till I open back up, and I don't care if it's forgiven. I'm going to use it as a 1%, working capital loan, that has to be repaid in, 2 years because it's the cheapest money I could get out there."
Yeah.
And there's a lot of argument about that, saying, hey, that's not the intended purpose. But, I'm not an attorney, but my argument would be, hey, look, if I'm going to still use that money to pay my people on payroll, and I'm going to use that money to, pay mortgage interest or rent or utilities, and I'm going to use the 75-25 parameter, just because I didn't use it in the 8 weeks, yeah, I'm not going to get it forgiven, but I don't expect it to be forgiven. I'll pay it back.
Yeah, and for some people, it's free payroll right now, right? Keep people busy, keep them employed, and then you got to pivot. You got to find ways to keep them productive, right?
Correct. So I mean, that's what the intent was. The intent was to keep people off of unemployment, keep people employed, and that's good for businesses that can work. But there's some businesses that are closed, and they may not, if they pay their people the next 8 weeks, they might not be around in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So
what do you say to those people? I mean, you have some clients like that, obviously, that are in that position. I mean, what happens in that role?
So, those are the clients that I would say, hey, subject to interpretation, your people could go on unemployment, for that period of time. And when you do reopen in June or July, you have that money to be able to pay them. As long as you use it for payroll and rent and utilities, you're using it with the intent, of the law. It's not going to be forgiven, but, it was still using it for the purpose. You didn't take the money and put a pool in your yard.
Yeah. Yeah. So as people start to, obviously we're going to be back to work here, hopefully in a couple of weeks. And what do you see that looking like for businesses as people start to get back to work, get back to busy? Where do you see the next 6 months, maybe over the summer? What happens?
It's going to be very difficult. I think that especially, people that have, all their individuals in an office, they are going to have to figure out how to properly keep their employees safe.
Yeah.
You're going to have issues. I mean, people are going to be skeptical about, returning to the workplace, and being around a group of people. You're going to have to limit, employees that are congregating, the getting everybody in a conference room, and having a meeting, I think is going to be a thing of the past for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Having employees work directly next to each other in cubicles, could be a challenge. So you're going to have to really look at your physical workspace. You're going to have to analyze who is in your workforce. Have you ever thought about, who's in your workforce, and if there's anybody that, has a medical issue or is immunocompromised? No, you probably haven't, because HIPAA regulations prevent you from knowing that.
I was just going to say, how would you even do that? I mean, and are you guys, coming up with a workaround for that?
So yeah, I mean, it's going to be we're looking at, them loosening regulations to be able to have conversations with people and allow them to come to you, so that you can make sure that, these people are protected. We're also talking, with clients and even ourselves about, staggering your workforce. So allowing flexible, working conditions where, some days of the week you have some of the staff report, and then the other staff works from home, so that you can make sure that, just like a restaurant is going to have to do, you're going to be operating at, a diminished capacity. So rather than have your staff all in, you maybe have 40% of them in.
I'd say what, for some owners and operators at high levels, I can tell you that they're saying, they're cringing, right? They're like, this is the 9 to 5. People show up. We have our sales meeting and staff shows. Like for some of those folks that are just irreversible, I can see that. I just see that being such a detriment to make them, try to figure out which direction to go. I can see them getting caught up in the middle of that.
It's going to be super difficult. You're going to have to worry about, making sure that all your employees are, washing their hands, and what are they touching, and do you have a cleaning company that's using, the proper, virucidal, cleaning agents? And there is so many variables to this. And I mean, we're giving our clients, checklists, return to work checklists that are 2 pages long, all the things to think about from a business standpoint. I mean, it's actually overwhelming, but it's things you have to do.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, I'm here with my friend Steve Sweeney, NEMR Total HR Services, and Steve does virtual outsourced, or not virtual, but outsourced HR services for businesses all around the country, primarily in the New Jersey area. And so if you have HR questions, you have questions about the CARES Act and the loans that are available, or anything HR related, feel free to ask in the comments, and we'll get them live, and we'll get them answered live here on the call. We got a couple minutes left with Steve. Steve, any questions that I didn't get to? Anything you wanted to cover?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, one of the biggest things that people need to be prepared to do is, get ready to communicate with your staff. Let them know, what you're doing, the actions that you've taken, what your plan is. I mean, I think that the biggest thing, Joe, like, dealing with your staff is communication, right? Yeah. So, when you don't communicate, whether it's your business plan, your vision, your mission, whatever, uncertainty breeds, a lot of different challenges. And this is going to be no different. I mean, this is going to be even worse than, any lack of communication you could have had prior. So the more you can communicate with your staff and let them know what you're doing, the more you're going to have your staff that's going to be prepared, ready to go back to work, feel confident about working. And you got to remember, I mean, your employees are your biggest asset, right? Yeah. And if you look at it like that, then you'll be in good shape.
I always say this, that the owners, the operators, the ones that are in charge, you work for your team, not the other way around, right? Like you need them to survive. You need them to be profitable. Communication has never been more paramount than it is today. But like we've been saying, this adversity is like the reset switch. It gets you to start focusing on the things that you should have been great at all along. And whether you like it or not, you have to survive. You have to be great at these things. And communication is one of those things.
So true. Yeah, so true, Joe.
And that's across the board with your people, with what we're doing. I was talking to some real estate investors last week with their tenants, like what does that look like? How do we cross this bridge? And overwhelmingly, the one thing that I love that's been coming out of all these conversations that we've been having daily is I see the positivity, I see the push forward, I see the pent up energy that people want to go release back on the economy. Like I really do think that the minute that they let us loose here, first of all, I don't think things are going to change very much. I think we're going to continue to work a lot the way we are now. But I also think that people are going to just back to work. How do we start to create again? And that's what I think is awesome about America too.
Yeah. I'm super optimistic. I've been optimistic, since the beginning. I still remain that. I mean, it's not without challenges. I mean, you said it, tenant landlord, right? I mean, New Jersey saying that, tenants can use their security deposit to pay their rent. I mean, that's a challenge in itself for a lot of landlords, right?
Crazy. That is one of the craziest things I've ever heard. But I do want to make a correction though, because what the governor said was that landlords could use the tenant's deposit to pay rent if they wanted, not the other way around, right? So I think that's super important fact, because a lot of tenants are saying, "Oh, we'll just take my security deposit." Well, first of all, that's going, like if you leave, most people think, first of all, I think most people think landlords are like these big billionaires, like swimming in cash and they own thousands of houses. Most landlords, because I've been in the landlord game for years, are your mom and pop. There's somebody who owns 2 or 3, duplexes maybe, or, even one for that matter. And if you don't pay the rent, they can't pay the mortgage. Like they're not collecting your $2,000 rent and putting $1,950 in their pocket. You know what I mean? Like they got taxes, they got mortgage, they need utilities in some cases. So, not paying the rent equals maybe not having, a landlord anymore, and being an answer to a bank. So, but luckily, and knock on wood, the tenants I've talked to, the landlords I've talked to, this thing hasn't really. I'm kind of concerned about May 1st, because rent's due on the 5th, but. We're going to see what happens, but, been within 90% of collections, 95% of collections. And, it seems like people are using the money they're getting to do the right thing and continue to pay their bills, which so far is good.
That's good to hear, because I got nervous when I saw that for a lot of the landlords out there.
Yeah, it's look. The fact that he made that available is crazy in my opinion. But I get it. It's one way, but it's like putting all your debt on a credit card and never paying it back. We're just digging deeper when you take someone's security deposit and say, "I haven't paid rent with you." What happens next month or the month after that? I think a lot of landlords are going to get hurt overall, but that's besides. I mean, everyone's going to get hurt at some level in this thing. How do we push past it, stay optimistic, and learn from this whole thing? So that's what I'm thinking.
I hear you. No, I hear you.
Cool. So, Steve Sweeney, I appreciate you being on the show today, brother, and very, very informative. Guys, if you found value in today's show, all we ask you to do is share it with your friends, share it on your wall, share it in Messenger, get the word out there, share the video. And if you want to, Steve, people can contact you if they're looking for HR services. What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can go through our website, nemrhr.com, and they can find all our contact information there. Yeah, and
I can tell you right now, guys, I'm on Steve's mailing list. I check out the blog. These guys post very, very valuable content and downloads and things like that for your HR services. Some really, really smart stuff. So definitely get involved in Steve's ecosystem so that he can get you that contact information, and as well as all the other valuable HR information that comes out of there. So, Steve, thanks for joining the show today, man.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good one.
You too, bro.